Hello, hello, hello. Yep, it's the Russians that did it. Yes, it's the Russians that did it. Everything, including the weather. Yep, we're talking about the chemical attack. The chemical attack. You see, when you do a poisoning and it all goes wrong and everyone gets better, and effectively we've thrown 23 diplomats out for what actually is turning out to be not much more than a pair of hamsters that might have died and a cat, under very suspicious circumstances added to that. The momentum in the narrative is starting to whittle away. It's starting to whittle away. Quick, we need distraction. Our story, our quick built story that led to the 23 diplomats being expelled and this hate on Russia as we're in this prelude to World Cup 2018 period is all going down. We need a new, fresh narrative to deflect attention. People are starting to unpick our story. As the Russian minister once said, they need more time to construct their false narrative. Give it to them. Problem is, it seems we have MI6 destroyed evidence. Why didn't we keep the little old hamsters and the cat that died? They went for a quick cremation. Let's hope they weren't Muslim. They should have been buried at sea if they were. Oh dear. And other crazy narratives like that, which are false. What's actually happening is they're making it up as they're going along. They're making it up as they're going along. The two people allegedly poisoned seem to be getting rather well and returning to normal. That must mean they were given an immediate antidote, which must mean that the parties that were around them very quickly knew, if they didn't know already, what had happened and what was it. It's not every day you're diagnosing, Novichok nerve gas agent. My doctor, it's not the first thing he says when I go in with my dodgy lungs. Novichok nerve gas, quick, here's the antidote, right to hand. The Russian flavor variety, I have it right here. The perfect alter ego to the one you've been poisoned with. It's fabulous bit of medical work there by MI6 and the police suits. And I love the little bit of drama. Well, it's bouncing around, you've got to forgive it a little bit. The road surfaces here in Britain aren't quite what they used to be, you know. All that QE money, it's not finding its way into the highway agency, I can tell you that much. Let me see if I can do anything better than that. You guys are going to get seasick again. I know you complain about it. I do hear and I do read, and I don't want it to be so. But we've got to catch up with you when the time allows, and this is a car story. It's got to be a car story. So, somewhere in MI6 there is a little beaten up nerd mealy mouse psychotic boy that specializes in strangling hamsters. He must be the Hamster Strangler, because they went over there and the hamsters died, the cat died, one of them disappeared, nobody knows what of. Destroy all the evidence. So there you go, nasty little MI6 agent sitting there making sure he sees the family out, you know. Specialized little twitchy nose of the hamster, you've got to die for the cause. False flag attack written all over the story. And here we have the chemical narrative, and Assad again. After Obama's red line, then very immediately after Obama said red line, amazingly Syria decided to test that red line, because hey, what's not smart about making sure the whole world is against you to ensure you get regime change exported to you and you end up being hung like Saddam Hussein or murdered like Gaddafi? Both of which ironically had something to do with looking to take petrol money in something other than dollars as well. But that's a separate video, a separate point. I think that's been well covered. So with all of this taking place, what do we make of the latest chemical claim? Now, I'm not going to comment on the evidence. It's impossible for me to. I don't have it. It is another way of hitting both Syria and Russia and advancing the cause. So it's also a deflection strategy from an unraveling story on guinea pig gate. That's right, guinea pig gate. The dark state murdering hamsters and cats, that's my guess, in some way, and burning it as you do with a stolen car or anything else you don't want to leave DNA in, so that no evidence can ever be laid claim to it. So did Syria after the previous event, which was proven largely to be fake and actually propagated by rebels sympathetic to the West, did Syria now change tack and say it's a grand idea to use chemical weapons? Of course we won't be blamed, and of course it won't help the Western Axis for escalating for a full-fledged military intervention in my country that it will extend way beyond that which I'm currently just about holding at bay. So let me guess, probabilities that it was Syria, thinking hard, 0.1. Of course there's always a probability. Some crooked agent could have even, if they even had such a thing, stolen it from a warehouse and provided it to a force to frame them up. But my guess is it's another attempt, and this shows how uncreative or the West is turning about how to escalate this conflict with Russia and Syria. I mean, hang on a minute, we've tried that one already and you got caught cheating. You gave it 18 months and you're trying it again. How, after already seeing it not work once, is he going to be more likely to try his own chemical weapons now? What do they expect of us? How stupid do they think we are that we're going to swallow that narrative? Oh, and those that put great store in the great Donald Trump as being the one that got through the net and isn't part of the control structure, now he's calling out Putin as well as calling Assad an animal. So we get all sorts of, he's an animal, he's destroying people in the most inhuman way, kids and everything. What about the Yemeni kids that have been bombed from Mirages and F-16s and weaponry provided by the UK? Oh, we only establish morality if it's chemical weapons. There's a certain kind. Oh, honor amongst thieves and honor amongst murderers. Oh, now that's a red line. No, they're all red lines. Murder is murder, and chemical weapons is a horrible kind of murder, but they're all terrible. But we've got to incite an extra degree of malice because everybody's got so used to state-based murder by fighter plane, by drone, by Mirages, by F-16s, by all forms of bombing, cluster bombs used by the West. Let's be clear, the biggest ever chemical attack was launched with Agent Orange in the Vietnam War. It contaminated absolutely mega hectares of virgin forest, contaminated soil for a generation, led to retarded births, birth defects for a full generation to all that were even slightly exposed to it, led to pain and suffering. The greatest chemical weapons purveyor ever in conflict is the United States of America on Vietnam. It was wholesale, it was industrial to the tune of absolutely millions and millions and millions. It literally broke the dollar and saw to the gold being disassociated in value to the dollar. You could no longer claim your ounce of gold to that. Such was the extent of dollar printing to wage one of the greatest military industrial complexes away from home battles. It was huge and all-encompassing. For its time, it dwarfs Iran, my apologies, Iraq and Afghanistan, and in its scale, although the costs are a lot higher today and the techno wizardry a lot higher. So when it comes to chemical weapons, the West cannot, may not and should not speak. They are the most foul users of chemical weapons ever, and that's one incident I've mentioned. We are, as I've mentioned, the cluster bomb heroes that leave unignited bombs lying around in the ground for curious kids to pick up and blow up an arm off, a leg off, a head off, who knows what. We absolutely destroy nations with the nature of our weapons, and here we are calling out Syria again after the failed first effort. The setup was exposed, badly executed and exposed, and it was exposed for what it was. Hey, what? Give it 18 months, try the same trick again. So let's give you something predictive that I see coming in terms of what's going to happen in the run-up to the World Cup. The game for the West is to discredit this event and smear it and make it look like one of the most controversial socio-political events ever allowed to happen, to cause as much embarrassment for Russia as is humanly possible, to potentially even have some degree of conflict engaged during the World Cup, so that soldiers are out in the field in Syria, intensify it so that there can be blame, ambassadorial blame laid, and France, UK, Russia, all singing from the same hymn sheet about how it's bad Russia doing these evil things. They're all going to sing. Let me say, football hooliganism. There will absolutely be Brit versus Russian gang fights. They will be organized where police generally are not. There will be, I suspect, say a Molotov cocktails thrown. The impression will be given that the Russians are particularly mean and malicious. Think Marseille at the previous World Cup, that they're out, they're going to have real ambushes, even if they have to hire hoods from another country to do it, they will do it. The police will be shown to be not present and badly run because these fights are allowed to occur. I would suspect that there will be all sorts of football violence planned around it, which could involve stone throwing, restaurant spoiling, and all of that. And it will be made to look like the main perpetrators of said violence are the Russians on Western nations. In other words, it's not a safe place for us to visit, which would be a complete falsification, but it's likely where they're going to go. So predictably, further escalations of Russia-based ill deeds in Syria by supporting a chemical warfare zealot and an animal. Politically around the Skripal case, although clearly they needed a bit of a spotlight to be deflected away from that one, given some hard questions being asked. Diplomatically, there's going to be a lot of rhetoric flying from the West, a lot of bedwetters squealing foul and carrying on like Nancy girls. There's going to be a lot of that in the lead up. They're probably going to be, think of the Black Power salute during the civil rights movement in the one Olympics. There'll probably be some heroic athletes that will voice their political distaste at Russia and its foreign policies, maybe from the American team, maybe from the French or the British team, or someone who will be heroized. Think of the bloke who didn't stand up for the anthem in the United States, the footballer, I don't even know his name, I knew him once, it passed straight through my head. He'll be a dot in history, but there will be people that will make gestures of contempt. There will maybe be black armbands worn specifically, and it'll be leaked by the media for those poor people who died due to the chemical attacks. All of these things will, in my mindset, be quite high priority for the West and could be likely. So watch out to see if our futuristic attempts, the minute you know the actors and their agenda, you can predict likely outcomes. That doesn't mean you will be 100% accurate 100% of the time, but you can, other people that never give thought to it, don't know who the dark actors are or who their agenda, can be startled by how accurate you can be all the time, almost clairvoyant. And in actual fact, you just have to apply yourself and say, so what comes next? What comes next with a major sporting event to be housed? Lots of shaming. Drugs. I think there'll be some fake leak that will say the Russian footballers or people associated with the coaching team are doing performance-enhancing drugs for the Russian team. We're probably led to believe that they're all having a line of Coke at halftime instead of the usual oranges. Who knows? what the potential narrative will be, but it's going to come. It's going to come thick and fast, because one thing the West does real well is deception, deceit, and propaganda. That is our biggest export in through our media channels. Deception, deceit, and wholesale propaganda, and slur and smear. We are experts at it. We'll keep a wall of horse manure stories coming at people that will astound them. They won't have enough time to debunk number one, and the fourth story will already have its liar's pants on and run around the world 4 times before the truth on the original narrative gets out. There's going to be drug performance issues, football violence issues. I think there'll be some heroes that will be already set up as heroes and told by their politicians, you know, do this symbolic gesture of defiance when there's the opening ceremony, do this. I'm telling you, this is all that would go down. If I was a member of the control structure and I'm just trying to smear and crap all over somebody's wedding, that's what I do, you know, and that's what these guys are all about. That's what they're going to do. They are going to try outside the football, make the entire event look like a distasteful, embarrassing, fraudulent cheating. There'll be maybe bung stories to referees and officials for Russian matches. They'll try to tell you that a particularly favorable ref or linesman or team of refs or linemen, or that money was paid for outcomes to keep Russia in the tournament. They're going to any amount. If I sit down long enough, I can come up with 5, 6, maybe 10 different narratives that they will push, and they will create patsies, and they'll even set up these narratives. They'll get some referee to say he was offered money to, if he got the match, to do something favorable. Who knows what will go on? As far as we all led to believe, Russia are nothing but a lying, deceiving, fraudulent, corrupt, discredited nation that will stop at nothing to deceive, when in fact it's the deception itself, and the source of that deception is us, the Western media. That's my take anyway. Keep an eye out. Let's see if any of these off the top of my head far-flung narratives, if any of them come around. Watch for the hooligans aspects and how it'll all be the Russians. We will have had fights at World Cups and events involving British hoodlums when Russia wasn't even involved during the USSR era on any great level, and we will now all this will be particularly bad. It'll be motivated, and there's probably going to be someone waving a neo-Nazi flag or a swastika on the Russian team, or there will be segments of the crowd that will boo non-white players. There's another one I'll give you. Racist. They'll play the racist card. Despicable. I don't believe I can support this World Cup. FIFA should look into this. They should be fined. Fans are all whistling and jeering. And that's not to say there can't be authentic people that may be racist that will do it, but I watch for plants. People that will act out in a racist manner to make the larger whole be judged. Watch out for that. Those are my calls for the slurred tricks that are awaiting Russia in the Football World Cup in 2018, coming not too far away. Let's check back as the event goes, see if any of them come off. Francis saying to you, watch out for these games. This chemical attack smells as stinky as a kettle of fish. And by the way, final webinar on the 7 great mistakes traders make and the 3 great gifts they forget to use, all coming at you on this Thursday at 19:30 GMT. Don't miss that one as well. This is the great reset game, guys. You've got to have a plan. Speak to you then. Apologize for the bumpy cut. Hope you survive. Not